All right. Well, Aaron, getting it going. It's funny. Aaron and I were talking before we started recording, and I realized that we might get a nugget in those that back and forth. So I just hit the record button. How you doing, man?
Good, good. I feel like we're so busy that this is like the best way for us to catch up is just like put a time on the calendar and record it.
Yeah, you look great though. You've been. I know you ran your race. You look like you're in great shape. You've been running since the race.
Thank you. Yeah, I have been running. I'm in the gym in the morning 3 days a week and getting back in fighting shape for next season of triathlons.
Wanted to get kicked off here. You know, we are growing brands at exponential pace. You and I, very exciting because we started at similar times and get to trade notes and always do. We use similar suppliers and methodologies. And what I love about our relationship is we agree on a lot and we don't always agree on every theory, which is the point of a good strategic friendship or partnership, if you will. And, just wanted to kind of share some of our lessons learned. I know I have a few that I've got from the past few months, but I want to put it to you first, Aaron. If someone asked you, what's the biggest lesson you've learned from the time you opened, started awarding territory to now, what's the biggest thing you learned so far?
So when I first launched, someone advised me to raise the least amount of capital needed, but then go a little bit higher than that. Because you can always, as you know, with business, you can always raise more money. I took that advice because I had never sold a brand with no units before, right? So I raised more capital than I needed. My expectation for the year was that we would do 32 units, 12 franchisees. And that was my expectation based on limited knowledge of selling a brand new brand. Every brand I've been involved in prior to this had at least 100 units. And so, as you know, we're now at 75 units, 25 franchisees. And we've done that since the end of February. So the minute that I saw that kind of trajectory and that I started just hiring people that I knew that I would need if we ended up where we are now. And so the lesson I think that I didn't know that I back then is just hire before you think and that things will, and just be prepared for things to not be exactly how you think they're going to be with business, for good or for bad. Now for us, it's been phenomenal. Our franchisees are out, they're crushing it. But yeah, so now we've got a team. It's me and 13 people, which is a pretty big team for the amount of operating franchisees we have. But yeah, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, same thing. I mean, to me, building the team ahead of time is tremendously less stressful from a day-to-day standpoint. It's only stressful from a financial standpoint as it stresses your financials, but it's always going to pay off in the long term. So hiring ahead is something I definitely agree on. You have to have the confidence in where you're going. You have to know where you're going to go and hire ahead because chances are only you and maybe a few people on your team see where you're going to be and what you need. And then you have to have the confidence, to make those hires ahead and know that you're going to hit your numbers and need them. For me, the biggest lesson that I learned was that no matter how much you mention this, I think that, we talk about in franchising people's misconceptions around owning a business. The biggest one I've learned is no matter what it is, whether it's a gym, a school, a home service brand, especially a home service brand, no matter what the brand does on Facebook and Google and marketing and everything else, you need local selling. Nothing will replace local selling. And I always argue that if a franchise brand didn't need a local salesperson, then why would they franchise? What do they need? They need something. For us, no matter what we do on the lead generation fronts, what we need is somebody that could do two things. One, nobody wants to work for Voda Corporate in Ivory Tower in Wisconsin and New York or wherever we are. They want to work for their local owner in their market that they can shake hands and have a coffee with. That's number one. Number two is nobody wants to give business to, in our case, property managers and plumbers want to give business to that local owner they can shake it. They don't care about, Voda corporate. We can't open up locations and just get property managers. We need the local person. And so my biggest lesson that I've learned is, I think a lot of franchise owners think that they're going to get out there and they're going to sell, but they don't realize that it's very easy for 3, 4, 5 days to go by where you were not prospecting. And so my biggest lesson was similar to what you said on the corporate side, is very much encouraging franchise owners from day one to start thinking about who you're going to hire as your salesperson alongside your GM.
Yeah. That's the same, because as you know, with Rolling Suds, we're heavy on the commercial side. Like the majority of our franchise owners' business has been commercial, and it's all relationship selling. And it's the same exact thing. Like the guy who manages multiple parking garages wants to look at someone who looks nice, has a wrapped vehicle, and wants to, hire that person. And so what we've done is we've built in like pretty robust trainings around the specific types of people that a franchise owner would sell to, whether it's a referral partner or a commercial customer. We've built trainings and lessons around how to get in front of those people that you could plug a salesperson into as well, or a general manager or whomever. The other thing I've also realized is the demand for the power washing, like just in general, there's a pretty big gap in the industry. So franchisees are ordering, truck number 2 sooner than I thought. So what we've done is we've increased the capital requirements for franchise owners from when we first started, so that they can have truck number 2 ready to go. I don't think, though, that if I knew that at the beginning, it's a pretty considerable difference in capital requirements. So it was a big decision for us. But we've been fortunate to attract like the C-suite, empire builder types who want to grow really massive businesses. So we've been really fortunate. And I know, we're often talking to the same candidates and stuff. And whenever I lose one to you guys, I'm like excited for them. It's like one of the only brands that I'm like excited that they went to Voda instead of Rolling Suds.
Yeah, I always think it's funny. I think I once said to you that we have a couple options with candidates. We either joke around and high five and whoever wins or loses, or just never talk about it. Never. I just don't talk about that part. But I feel the same way. If they're going to buy something else, I'd love them to buy a friend's business. But what I was going to say was, so with that change, so you shifted your capital requirements in order to attract a certain buyer who wants to get to a second truck. Have you found, what is your thoughts on that whole local selling? Like, are you finding, I know you have a commercial component to your business. You're continuing to make playbooks around how to get out there, but are you guys also looking to bring in salespeople for franchisees to bring in salespeople, or what are you seeing your owners doing?
So what we've realized is each different owner has different skill sets, and it doesn't make sense to fit, even though our job is to create a model that anyone can plug into. I think a franchisor, at least from my perspective's job, should also be to create specific systems for the type of buyer. So like we have some buyers who are like multi-unit crumble franchisees who have 7 locations and are super like operationally sound, who wouldn't necessarily be great like talking to a homeowner and selling them a $1,300 power washing job. And that's okay. So what we're doing is basically, if I meet someone like that in the franchise development process, is just tell them like, hey, we're going to probably want to build the cost of a salesperson into your working capital as you plan for this. Now, on the other side of things, you've got people who are like excellent at that, and maybe they need to get out of any kind of operational role and hire some type of manager, or, train a lead technician up to be general manager quicker. And so what we've done is just basically create trainings for the specific things that the franchise owner needs. But no matter what, someone has to be out there all day long selling. And if that doesn't exist, they're going to struggle.
Yeah, to me, there's prospecting and then there's selling, right? So the prospecting is a job in itself, and that's what you're looking to hire, or some owners are great at it. It's funny though, because you think you could sell the best as an owner. No one could sell. You can't as an owner sell as good. I was thinking about today. I was talking to a candidate, and I nicely said to him, "Hey, I'm sorry that my phone keeps ringing." And you know what? He doesn't care. He doesn't care that I'm the CEO. He doesn't care. His franchise development person or his person he's talking to had a phone that kept ringing. And the person whose only job is to do that, that can make a difference when all they're thinking about is that one thing compartmentalized. And so I think there's a value, same thing for a franchise owner. They've got so much going on in their head and things going on. It's better for somebody to focus on prospecting and selling. And then, obviously the franchise owner can bring in relationships. Now you changed that. I guess you had to go through a whole FTD change, or did you just how did you?
No, because our FTD is set up for one territory and we don't do one territory deals anyways. So the FTD has to be written for one territory, what item 7 would say. So I'm already above what our item 7 says. I asked if we should put that it's a 2 territory minimum in there, and legal was like, well, will you allow a franchisee to buy 1 extra territory and expand? I was like, yeah, well, then they're like, then it has to be written that way. So we just set the expectation that these are our liquidity requirements. The other thing that I realized, another lesson I learned, and you'll appreciate this actually, because you're lead gen, master. So we have a really good customer acquisition strategy internally. Like we turn leads on a month before training. They're out getting leads. You know what I mean? Like they're out selling jobs. And the first group that came in, like I told them exactly what we do, right? And I was like, this is what we do. And what ended up happening is that kind of became like almost like the ethos of like corporate generates me the leads and I sell the jobs, which is like, that's great. But what I've realized is like, if you're just dependent upon lead generation sources, it's very hard to be a business owner because you're dependent upon what the lead generation sources are going to do for you, right? And so the ROI on your time, like if you can go out and you can spend 6 hours prospecting on a Tuesday, and that generates $100,000 in recurring revenue. I'm just using random numbers annually. Let's just say you're now an owner of that experience and you can pull a lever on your business that makes it more profitable. Whereas if you're just waiting for leads to come in, you don't have that same effect. So I thought it was like, hey, we're going to do all this stuff. But it also, what I've realized is it makes franchisees feel like an inherent lack of control on their business if they're the ones getting all of the leads produced for them. So I'm pushing back on the network now. And we have this whole new, like, we're requiring truck number 2 to be added within the first 6 months. Like, we're going like hard on it. And so we're quantifying what a referral partner, what a commercial customer could be valued at. So we could say, go out and develop these relationships. Because to your point about local selling, like if you're not out there or someone in your business is not out there every day focusing on driving revenue to the business, the cost of goods sold doesn't matter. The P&L doesn't matter. Like none of the other stuff matters without revenue.
I couldn't agree with you more. I had this aha moment years ago, which was that the only reason businesses franchise are for a few, either extensive needs for capital, right? Like big brick and mortar build outs. And like, there's no way I could possibly afford to build out 100 of these locations. That's one reason to franchise. Then you got businesses like my first franchise, Murphy Business and Financial, which gave you the systems, but they needed the actual human being to do the work and quite frankly, to hit the pavement. And then you've got home services, which I think a lot of home service brands make it sound like, and no offense to this, but that you just do nothing. That is just, again, you wouldn't franchise. I would just open up corporate stores. I wouldn't need a local owner. It's not an ATM machine. There's a reason that we need franchisees. And so one of the things I'll tell you I learned, Aaron, that is frustrating, but it is what it is I thought I knew all the franchise development stuff out there. Now that I'm on this side, I'm unfortunately experiencing learning some of the other things. I'll give you a great example. And I'll never say anything, about anyone, but And there's different ways to do business. But, I was just having this conversation with someone. I said, I sit on panels on how to sell franchises, how to award franchises, how to grow franchises. I've been behind a lot of franchise sales. When we launched our brand, I knew I would have no issue finding franchisees. It is not something I struggle with, nor the company, of course, nor do you, of course. And we made a decision to make our territories a certain size that I feel are a great size. Not because we needed to. As I just mentioned, we would have no problem awarding territory, but we made them a certain size. And something you posted recently, what I really liked was you can't start with one size and then shrink them. It screws up the item 19 data. And that was never our goal. Our goal is this is the territory. This is what we're doing. This is what we feel is the right amount of territory. And what's interesting is, I say to people, look, I'd rather see you put that extra, if you're not going to give me that extra franchise fee to do an even bigger territory, then I want you to pretend you did. And I want you to take that money and go put it toward building your business. But what I think is interesting is sometimes people get deceived by these ideas like, hey, buy 2 of these and you get a third for free, for example. And what I think is interesting is when you actually compare territory apples to apples, it's actually the same, if not less. And so I always found that very interesting. And it's an unfortunate thing that it's so complicated and things are moving so quickly, but people sometimes kind of, I don't want to say fall because it's a business. I understand creating urgency and giving a deal, not putting it down. There's nothing wrong with that. I just sometimes wish there was a way to communicate some of the things that are, done the right way a little bit more, which is just a lesson I have to just deal with. I can't change it,
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about this, but I have found that due to my authenticity in the process and being brutally honest with candidates on call number 1 and turning away more candidates than we're bringing in, considerably more candidates than we're bringing in, has actually allowed people to trust me more that even if Rolling Suds isn't right or I don't approve them for Rolling Suds, listen, don't just think twice when you go and a brand tells you that you need to buy 9 territories and you don't have to work. That's not how business works. And, you're going to make a $200,000 to $300,000 investment. And the only thing that's more valuable than your money is your time. And, so I've said that to candidates and just said, listen, do what you want to do. But here's some advice. You're not right for our system just based on your certain circumstances, but be careful because buying a business is a big deal. And I don't think a lot of people do that. And it's ended up working out for me because I've developed really trusting relationships with a lot of candidates by just being brutally honest with exactly what they can expect.
Yeah, just to be clear, I sometimes think to myself, business is about building a great mousetrap and marketing funnel. And I don't put down those brands that do what they do. I just sometimes think to myself, I should have started with the good deal. I should have made it look different and then, you know what? We're going to give you a bigger territory. It's that's the thing. It's sometimes we don't have people come to us. They fall out of the process. And you say to yourself, why? Because there's some reason. And sometimes you find out later on that it's about territory and you're like, wait a minute, they actually really did just misunderstand. I'll give you another example. I had a guy, he was pretty close to buying a Voda and he was looking at a resale and a franchise resale. And I was on the phone with him. He told me about the deal. I said, dude, I got to tell you, I don't want to say this. It hurts to say it. But if that's the deal, take that deal. That's a freaking home run. And, maybe come back to, but I knew that it was just too good of a deal for him to pass up. And I said, though, at the end of the call, hey, just make sure you do a lien search, right? To make sure that because he was, in this particular case, he was buying an LLC, which when you buy someone's LLC, you actually buy their liabilities. You buy even if they owe taxes. It's not it's an actual purchase of the LLC. So he ended up doing the lien search. That person owed several hundred thousands of dollars in liens. Not that you would inherit all of it, but it would be a pretty tough thing to handle. And so it's funny because I felt like I did the right thing. It was hard. I told him that. 2 weeks later, I was patient. 2 weeks later, that thing fell through. He's back in our process. And it was just kind of explaining things the right way. So I couldn't agree with you more. I just sometimes think about making a video that's like, here's all the things that you're going to get misconstrued in our process. So here it is up for, well, here's the things that are going to get used like to sell against what we do. And by the way, listen, that's business. That's okay, right?
Yeah.
When our franchisees go into the market, they're going to have to sell and fight against competitors. I'll give you a great example. You talk about transparency. We came into carpet cleaning and floor cleaning, and we're going to be the good guys. Everybody quotes these big these fake prices. They get in the home and they upsell. We're going to do it all. And we learned that we actually, as a game, we can't play. We can't try to say, hey, your house is going to cost $600 and the competitor's $100. Even though the truth is, when they get there, they're going to upsell. We were losing too many jobs. That's a lesson learned. And sometimes you got to play the game. But I just sometimes find when it comes to territory, I almost wish there was obviously there's industry changes that make territories different, but I almost wish territories was a standardized thing that like all of us had to have the same size territory and just take that off the table of negotiating.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about this. I had the whole country mapped out beforehand, and we don't do right of first refusals or hold territories or anything like that. So these are the areas.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I mean to cut you off. That's the other thing. Like when it comes to territory, though, I'll take back what I said, and I didn't mean to cut you off. With that said, my business can service a certain amount of the population. Your business is different. Someone else's business is different. So people are often comparing territory in an apples to orange comparison because in a certain business, you don't need as many households or people as another, right? The addressable market's different. And so I think that whole area is very confusing. If I was a franchise buyer, I'd get confused by it too.
Yeah. I'll tell you another lesson I learned. So at the beginning of the year, everyone was like, Aaron, you got all this like knowledge about franchising. You need to put out content. You need to put out content. And I was like, I don't want to do it. Like, I don't feel like it'll be authentic. And then I continued to get more involved in the community and everything like that. And everyone was like, no, you really need to put out content. And so I started doing it more like just like I'd type things out on LinkedIn and getting some traction. And then people would find me as either an employee wanting to join Rolling Suds or a potential buyer wanting to join Rolling Suds. And then I realized actually one of the highest leverage things I can do is create content. Because if I can communicate the message of Rolling Suds or responsible franchising or like what we're doing and like just at scale by like getting in front of lots of people at one time, it'll have essentially a flywheel effect. So we hired someone, I think I told you about this, like he started full-time in November, and he's actually one of my best buddies from like childhood. And he built a brand from 1,000 followers to 900,000 followers organically in like 8 years. And so he's our full-time in-house content strategist now. And he flies out here, we record for 2 days a month. And then he also will come with me to conferences, and he'll go see franchisees and he has already recorded a day in the life video. He'll be at training, recording videos that we can implement into our training to make our, power launch program, our ramp up better. But like, I didn't really understand the power of content. If I did, I probably would have budgeted it in from the beginning of the year.
I mean, you're having a relationship with people at scale. That's what I call it. You have a relationship with them. They have a relationship with you at scale.
Yeah. And I've been on so many podcasts that I will talk to a candidate and it's the first intro call. And they're like, I already know you better than you know me. I've watched every single thing you've been on online. And what it allows us to do is have such a more meaningful conversation on the first intro call. Like, They already know who I am, what I'm about, what we're doing here, why we're doing it, what the goal is 10 years from now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like it, and that I believe is invaluable and hard to put a price tag on.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I couldn't agree with you more. I think making content is amazing. You're killing it at that. Congrats.
Thanks.
The only thing I'll tell you about the content thing, and maybe this is a good topic around lessons learned, is, listen, in no way I'm comparing us to like a Hermosi. I'm using him as an example.
Yeah.
But
I get it.
I actually have this conversation, like, it's like a fun theory, like question I have, which is like, let's use Justin Bieber as an example. Okay. Justin Bieber is like insanely famous, or use whatever, Taylor Swift, whatever, pop star, Drake, whatever, Tom Brady, whatever. They're so famous. So obviously they got a lot of random people that have met them reaching out. There's a filter for that. But they're also so famous that like everyone who's famous likes Tom Brady and hits him up a lot. You know what I mean? So like it's a lot of people, texts and calls and emails. And so I always wonder like what's like the policy there, how you deal with that. Because on the very, 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 very micro level of my life, I'm at this point where I was just having this conversation. I have to choose what I can do. I can't, and when I say I can't answer some of these emails, they're from people I know, friends, calls, text. I just can't. There's only so many hours in the day. It's going to be a joke like, oh, Mr. Popular. I don't mean it that way. But I'm curious how you deal with that, because a lot of people, every time you put content out there, vying for your energy or your attention. You got kids, you got a wife, you got your business. How do you deal with that?
How do I manage it? Yeah. So ever since I started doing it more, like putting out, a video a day, I find that I have a lot of reach outs from emerging franchisors, particularly. Yeah.
Advice. Give me advice, etc.
Give me advice. What do you think? This and that. And like, I will sometimes respectfully, because I can't have a call with an emerging franchisor each week. Like, it's just not realistic. And I at the beginning, I like tried to talk to some of them because I really do like to help emerging franchisors. And then I was like, wait a minute, like I can't do that. So I'll send them if they message me on LinkedIn or they send me a message, like I'll message them a podcast that I was on where I discussed like what you should do as an emerging franchisor and say, hey, listen to this. Would love to meet you at IFA. I'll be at IFA. Or, here are some conferences I'll be at. And that's only going to get more real as we continue to grow our company. And so I'm looking at hiring like an executive assistant / like, someone who helps with just the things that I need to do as the CEO of the organization. And
sorry.
You have to put the barriers in eventually. And I'm Hormozi and Brady. I mean, all these people have like multiple layers of barriers. But yeah,
I used to stress over it, and then I just stopped responding. And I just wish there was a way to put out a public announcement, which I have tried, and it's given me backlash, which is, hey, if I don't answer, it's not you, it's me. It has nothing to do with you. And it's not that I think I'm more important or anything like that. I just physically can't. I'm on Zoom all day long, and like, I was joking around with you when we started the podcast, like that I just want to be able to sit in a room and do my one thing I'm doing. And like, I'm more of an operations person than you think. And I may even be more of an introvert than you think. I like to be in one thing at a time, but I'm never allowed to be. I was just having that conversation around, and I know you struggle with this too. I know that I do a great job with FranDev, and it's a great use of my time. But every day that I'm on a FranDev call and my brain is on that, it's off the business and the future operational vision that I think it could be used for. That's my real skill. And so it's interesting because what is the opportunity? The opportunity cost is you don't see it. You're not seeing what the opportunity cost is because you're doing something maybe that you shouldn't be doing. It's funny. My coach recently, she said, Dan, you're doing everything a year ago you set out to do with your business except one thing, which is the fact that I'm so in the weeds of one thing, which I wasn't supposed to be. And, we're at 40 units, 20 franchise owners. We're growing rapidly. But, you could make the argument Is that me? I don't think so. I think that is our system. But it's just so interesting, and I think I'll answer my own question, which is you just can't answer everything anymore. And what does David Barr do? I'm sure he doesn't answer everything either.
Yeah, I mean, he just prioritizes the things that he needs to do the most, that provide the most leverage on what he wants to accomplish. For me, I'm the same with FranDev. I'm doing everything for franchise development. In the next 3 to 6 months, I'll transition out of this role. We're going to allocate capital and build a sales team division, but we'll be at 100 units by February, So at that point, it's like, all right, I do think there's a certain amount of value in being one of the first franchisees and being able to talk to the CEO start to finish. And 5 years from now, being able to say to the 150th, 200th franchisee that, I think that's a special element. I think when you step away from that, though, I think it is what's the timing on that?
Yeah. I mean, I'll give you an example. I met with a franchise owner in New Jersey. I love him. He's a great guy. We met before he bought. Now he's about to sign a teammate and asked if I can meet. And the answer is yes. Like I can meet before we buy, but not after. Of course I can. I'm going to go meet his GM. And he said, I think it's a joke, but I want to bring in the big dog to help, get him across the line. And so like that, all of a sudden, I want to do that. That's going to move the needle for my business as much as FranDev is. And so it goes back to that point around where are you best suited in the organization, and putting yourself, even like, I'll give you an example. I came into this business with Franchise Playbook with a vision to grow a platform of brands. I've been that clear as that from day one. And I mean this in the least arrogant way. We launched Voda, and the only thing I hear from people is, ooh, Voda, you're going to have another brand? Voda's like, I'm like, yeah, Voda's the tip of the iceberg. This has always been the vision, and I get it because Voda's doing so well, but there's a large vision. And granted, we're not doing that anytime soon, but that platform has always been the plan. And I always have to remind myself to not start to think this is all you could think even bigger, right? I just had a candidate. He was telling me about his family member thinking, kind of talking him out of doing a business. And I was like, dude, I could be a billionaire. My family's still going to tell me not to do the next business, that I'm going to potentially fail. But you have to teach yourself to think bigger. And so I think for us, it's easy to be like, oh, I'm the best person at this. The best part is, well, I don't know about you, but there's someone better out there for FranDev in the industry. And better than me. And I would argue Steve's better than me, and I'm taking up the slack of what's left over. And it's funny, I know he's better than me because I'll be at a dinner and he could talk about all these like wide areas, right, of business. And the only reason that I'm able to I'm just going to be straight up, because I'm the CEO and I know the business so well and I could talk about the business, I do well. But if I was in a different role as a FranDev representative, I don't have enough, like, I'm too stupid in the other areas. I only know one thing, whereas Steve can, like, it's amazing, man. He could have a conversation about sports, college, the Army, everything, like anything you could think of. And so I know there's someone out there. If you're listening, we're hiring.
We're hiring. Yeah.
Take my seat. It's funny. There's a candidate. Sorry, there's a candidate that there's one brand in particular that I specifically seem to go head to head with a lot. It's not Rolling Suds. And so I was joking around. I keep looking at, hopefully he's listening, I keep looking at his LinkedIn profile because I'm like, man, this guy puts up a great fight in the FranDev process. But there's one candidate that we're so head to head on. And listen, I want to be clear. Obviously, the candidate needs to buy the best business for them, right? This candidate, in my opinion, would do great at any business he buys, and I really want him in our system. But we're head to head, and I keep joking around that I have to win because when I see him at a conference, I can't say, hey, you want to come work for me? And I lost. I gotta be the guy that won, so he respects me enough to come work with me.
That's funny. The other thing, going back to the content piece, just to your question about like creating the content means that people start reaching out to you wanting more help with the thing, is also validation that you should create you should continue creating the content, because it just goes to show that the more content you create, the more people are helped by it. And so, like, for me, like, when I started seeing an emerging franchisor reach out to me weekly asking for my help, I was like, okay, I need to create more content answering the most commonly asked questions of someone who needs that thing, because that's the only way I'm actually going to be able to help the people, because I can't take 4 calls a week of emerging franchisors. But yeah, and I mean, there's a ton of other things about it too, right? We just talked about employees see, and they're like, I want to be part of this. In customers of franchisees, or like, I've heard of Rolling Suds. We're all over the like Twitter space. Rolling Suds is. So yeah, it's just kind of switching back to that thing though.
So what do? You make content, and then you have someone on your team post the content, and then you have someone on your team respond to the content. Or right now, you're responding to the content.
Mm-hmm.
The people
yeah,
that
I
watch
mean,
the content.
So I do a lot of it. Like, I write, like, that post I wrote yesterday that got like all these things about turning someone away. Like, that's me. Something happens, I talk about it, which that's like really hard to replicate, right? But the video stuff we'll plan in advance. So I'll write out what the things are that we're gonna talk about that I find interesting, and then we'll plan it. And so the video stuff then is pre-recorded and posted by the team. So a lot of it's me, and then some of it's scheduled. But yeah, it's crazy how small our industry is.
It is small, and that's what I was saying though. Like, I like to think outside the industry too, because it's, there's a big world out there. But I love the content you're making, and I think what's funny about what we're doing is, I thought it was interesting. I was talking to a guy, and again, this is just talking, right? We were recording our conversation. I was talking to a guy the other day. He's like, oh, I really like Voda, the other brand. They sold 300 units and blah, 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 blah. And so I really want to go with you guys, but you're the less experienced brand. And I was like, wait, what? What do you mean less experienced? Why? Because we didn't sell 300 units? Like, people don't realize that when you franchise your business, it doesn't mean you know how to be a franchisor. And I was laughing about something, which is, there's another brand you were looking at, and, they're more established. Like, they're more established than us. And they also award lots of territory, and they're more established in the conventional sense. And they were, the candidate was kind of saying, like, why aren't you guys giving me a deal? They're doing a deal. They're going to let you buy X to get Z. And I was like, well, if we're more established, they're more established, why do they need to do the deal? I don't need to do deals. And I already did the deal. That's the thing. I made the deal in the offering we made. Like, if you're listening to your candidate, we made the offering. Like, same with the franchise agreement. We had 4 or 5 franchisee attorneys, like people who review FTDs. And we said, take this, tell us what you would change. And we changed the majority of what they suggested. So when you get our franchise agreement, it was negotiated. You just didn't get to be a part of the negotiation, but this is the negotiated version. This is the best territory you can get. This is the best franchise fee for the service that we're providing, right? We did all that. And if anyone knows me, when I negotiate, I go right to the number. I don't want to waste time. I'm very impatient. But I just thought it was interesting. Like, I think if anyone's given a deal with anything and they're really pushing, run away from that.
Yeah, I was just going to tell you, I would have told that person respectfully, this isn't the opportunity for you.
Like, and they're going to go buy the other thing, to be honest with you. And that you have to just, deal with that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would literally this happened the other day. There was an amazing candidate, amazing. Like, he was like, Aaron, I'm so excited. This is going to be awesome. Like, I want to get into the March training. Like, where do I sign? We went through the process, couple steps. Like, he talked to franchisees. He called me. He's like, I love it. If it's all right with you, I'd like to bring in a partner. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's fine. We're going to have to start the process over again. Totally fine. I just want to get to know the partner. So we started the process over again. Intro call, FTD review. Intro call, super tense, very kind of aggressive New York, like why is it this way? Why is it that way? I was like, okay, well, maybe like they balance each other out. And maybe that's why they'll be a good partnership. Then FDD review is the next step for us. We review the FDD and we do these as group calls now. I think I told you that. And he's like picking apart the whole thing. And so I texted the consultant afterwards and I'm like, hey, I don't think this candidate is going to work out. I know you and I are both stoked about this candidate, but I don't think it's going to work out. And he goes, oh, what's going on? I was like, yeah, the partner is just like, he's not meant to buy a franchise, or at least he's not meant to buy my franchise. And I was like, let me sleep on it and I'll let you know in the morning. Woke up, slept on it. First thing I thought about was this person is not the right cultural fit for our system. And so I called the other candidate who I was really excited about, let him know that I'd love for him to join the team, but here's why, if he's partnered with that person, that he will not be able to. And I did that because I need to protect our brand, and it's going to cost me way more money, and the intangible cost too of what like that's going to do culturally to the rest of the franchisees by bringing that person in. And he ended up thinking about it and deciding he's not going to move forward without his partner, which totally fine. But like, these are things that I feel like I know exactly who's going to be successful in my system and who's not. And I'm willing to turn away the person who's not the minute that I don't feel they're right.
Yeah, it's interesting. I couldn't agree with you more. Something we found in our discovery days is sometimes I might like a candidate and my team doesn't, or vice versa. And so what we came up with, and this is actually in the leadership team, something that we're now doing, it's somewhat of a board, right? Because the team, we started to put some weight, but some voting behind the leadership team, because everyone's got to deal with the candidate, but like work with the franchise owner and deal with them if they're not a good fit. And so after each discovery day, we vote as a team. It's a blind vote, and we talk about who needs, who we don't feel like should move forward. But something I like that we've come up with is when we decide someone's not a fit. I mean, listen, if it's a blatant not a fit, that's a different story. But if we feel like they're not a fit, but someone on the team does, right? What we do is we give the candidate, I mean, they don't know this, and I guess if they listen to this, they may know, but some tests, and they don't know. So we don't send an approval letter. We say, hey, we need you to do this, this, and this, and that. We never do another thing. Like, do these things, and I look for, do they do them, right? And were they able, because like that's the biggest thing, right? It's like, if we don't feel confident, let's see, where they're at. I'll give you a great example. We had a candidate. He was kind of in and out of the process. I kind of got busy. I'm unbelievably impressed by him. He went out. He couldn't get approved for a loan. Went out, got a job so he could get a loan. Keep the job, obviously. He could get the loan. Found a GM. The guy has a carpet cleaning experience. Brought him in. Came to our discovery day. Wowed my team. And went from like someone that I was, I don't want to say on the fence about, but someone that I was kind of like, is this person executing? Only to find out that they absolutely were an incredible executor. They kind of just did it more behind the scenes. Yeah. So I'm big on, you'll see it us with our discovery days. We're going to create more and more, tests, if you will, because I don't like making decisions on feeling. I like them on data. And so we're working on stuff like that now. But here's the thing. If I was a candidate and you came to my discovery day and you were on the fence, I could let that go a little bit. But to be honest with you, if I went to your discovery day, you're on the fence about me, I don't want to work with you. Like, right. Oh, you're on the fence. All right, then I'm not a fit. And it's funny because I try to explain that to candidates. It's the same thing. If we get all the way through our process and you still don't feel like it's a hell yes, that's not an insult for me. It's actually more of an insult to say, I think it's a hell yes, but I'm not sure and I got to go through more steps. Like for us, it's like at that point, either you're in or you're out.
Yeah. I mean, I will say that is one of the benefits of me, I think, and you doing this, but from kind of the beginning stages is it's like, you can cut out a lot of that, right? I've been doing this a pretty long time. So if it's on the first call, I can usually tell. I also spend a lot of time looking at like introspectively at who's going to be successful, who I think is going to be successful and what are the attributes of the person who is going to be a successful franchisee in our system. And so it is very like, if they do not have these goals and these guidelines and these life style, then they're not right. And being able to kind of like recognize that on the first call and then not have them go down the process. Whereas I think in other situations, it does take longer to figure it out. And maybe that is right. But for me right now, being on the front lines, it's like, listen, I'm the one making the decision. My team trusts me. We have a final kind of approval call, which would be our discovery day, is with the founders. If they see something that's different, they'll let me know, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's, and there's, people are, sometimes you're right about people and wrong about people. I think they say it's only 1/3 of hires that CEOs make are right. 1/3. I think that's a stat. Or maybe it's 2/3. I got to look it up. But it's some stat that's like, no matter what, I don't care if you're the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, you will make bad hires no matter what. And so with franchising, that's why it's you can only take it so far, right? You don't really have a crystal ball to who's going to be good or bad, right? I'm sure you've had people impress you, but that's kind of the challenge, right, of this business. But I also think you do a great job, and I know we do too, of telling them the reality of the business, because we got to raise them. They say raise the kids. Maybe that sounds a little derogatory. I don't mean it that way, but like, we don't only have people buy our franchise. We're signing 10-year agreements. I mean, I sign every single franchise agreement. I always remind myself at the end of the day, outside of my leadership team is pretty invested in Zach, the partner, but like at the end of the day, as the major shareholder of the company and principal, I'm the one that's with them. So right. I'm making the last, I don't care what anyone says. That was something I struggled with. We had conversations around that. I try really hard for it not to get all the way to post-discovery day, but I'm not making a decision that's going to hurt for a week. That's going to hurt me for 10 years.
Sure. Yeah.
For a 5-minute uncomfortable conversation.
Yeah, totally agree. Awesome. Well, I'm glad we got to catch up and talk about franchising, and I think we should do this once a month and put it out, and if people like listening to it, then they can keep listening to it. And otherwise, you and I just get to catch up.
Exactly.